Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to the big news. The topic for today's discussion, NASA's Artemis-I moon mission. Let us try and understand what is this topic all about. First up, let's look into the background. We have one of the programs initiated by the United States of America back in the 1960s and 70s, which was called as the Apollo program. What was this Apollo program all about? This was NASA's program that resulted in American astronauts walking on the moon. So for the first time, humans walked on the moon with the help of this Apollo program initiated by United States of America's NASA. As many as 12 astronauts walked on the moon. The astronauts conducted various scientific research. They even brought rocks from the moon so that could be studied on the Earth. A follow-up to this Apollo program is now being initiated by United States of America in the form of the Artemis program. What is this Artemis program? This happens to be a United States-led international human spaceflight program. Its primary goal is return humans to the moon, specifically the lunar south pole. It is named after the twin sister of Apollo from the Greek mythology. So the Artemis program is a United States-led international human spaceflight program, and its primary goal is to make sure that humans return to the moon after the Apollo program. During the Artemis program, NASA will land the first human and first person of color on the moon, and this program will help in lunar exploration. One of the important questions that we need to ask right now is what is the difference between the Apollo program and the Artemis program. When it comes to Apollo program, this was launched in the 1960s and the 70s, but now the Artemis is being launched in the year 2022. When we look into the rockets, Apollo had the mighty Saturn V rocket, but when it comes to Artemis, it has the even more mightier Space Launch System. When it comes to the distance and the destination, Moon was the final stop for the Apollo spacecraft. But when it comes to Artemis, it will eventually travel beyond the Moon as well. What are the goals of the Artemis and Apollo? When it comes to the 1960s, America was involved in the space race with the Soviet Union. So it was more political in nature when it comes to the Apollo, but now it is for the advancement of science when it comes to the Artemis. When it comes to Apollo, it was only for a few days, but when it comes to Artemis, it is about expansion of the policy, and at the same time they also want to have a continuous presence and long duration during the Artemis mission. These are some of the significant differences between the Apollo program and the Artemis program. And when it comes to the Artemis program, this can be broadly divided into three missions. One is what is called as the Artemis-I, which happens to be an uncrewed test flight which will circle and fly past the moon, followed by Artemis-II, which is a crewed flight beyond the moon, which will take humans the farthest they have ever been in the space, followed by Artemis-III, which will land the first female astronaut and the first astronaut of color on the moon, and involves spending a week performing scientific studies on the lunar surface. So the program in itself is broadly categorized into three missions: Artemis-I, Artemis-II as well as Artemis-III. So it will be broadly categorized into three missions. As part of the discussion, we will be discussing the Artemis-I, which is what is in the current context. This program is with the assistance of other space agencies as well. The Canadian Space Agency has committed to providing advanced robotics for the Gateway. European Space Agency will provide the International Habitat and the E-Spirit module, which will deliver additional communication capabilities among other things. The Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency plans to contribute habitation components and logistics resupply. Now the question is, what is this Artemis-I? When we speak about Artemis-I, it was previously called as an exploration mission. This uncrewed mission is an extensive test of the Space Launch System and the Orion module. So this will be testing the Space Launch System and the Orion module. The Space Launch System is the most powerful rocket ever built. This would generate as much as 8.8 million pounds of thrust and liftoff, making it 1.3 million pounds far more powerful than the Saturn V rocket used in the Apollo's mission. On the Artemis-I mission, what we will have is a series of experiments and a range of experiments of the science and technology that which will take place in the deep space. These are designed to expand lunar knowledge, make further technological developments, and ultimately shed light on some of the deep space radiation. Also on board are three moonkind mannequins wearing the first generation Orion crew survival system spacesuit, which the real astronauts will wear on Artemis 2 and 3. This happens to be the moonkin which is being tested by the scientists from NASA. Sensors will also be placed on all over the moonkins. They will also provide data on what human crew members may experience in the flight, and ultimately the data will be received. In case there are issues, the same will be addressed, so that in the future endeavor where the real humans will enter the moon, all these issues will be addressed because of the data received from the moonkins. How will the Artemis 1 work? Basically, what we will have is a series of steps. One is the launch. Second, jettison rocket, boosters, fairings, and launch abort system. Third is the core stage, main engine cutoff. Fourth will be the perigee raise maneuver. Fifth will be the Earth orbit. Sixth will be the translunar injection burn. Seventh will be the interim cryogenic propulsion system, separation and disposal. Eighth will be outbound trajectory correction burns, followed by outbound powered flyby. At the 10th will be the lunar orbit insertion. 11 will be distant retrograde orbit. 12 will be DRO departure. And 13 will be return powered flyby, and 14 will be return transit. 15 will be crew module separation from the service module, entry interface, and finally splashdown in the Pacific Ocean. These are the series of steps that will be taken so that it goes to the moon and comes back, and ultimately to check whether this uncrewed space mission is successful or not. These are the steps that will be taken as part of the Artemis 1. So what are the mission objectives? Equality. A chief aim for NASA is to land the first woman and first person of color on the lunar surface. They also wish to test the technology from rockets to spacesuits. The technologies currently being developed are designed to pave the way for the future deep space missions. Partnerships. The Artemis program is one of the NASA's first large collaborations with commercial companies such as SpaceX and Boeing. Long-term presence, where the Apollo 17 crew spent 3 days on the lunar surface. Artemis aims to establish a base to extend the trips to weeks and possibly months. Knowledge, as more is known about the moon compared with 50 years ago. NASA claims that this next series of missions will be able to retrieve samples more strategically than during the Apollo era. And resources, the discovery of water on the moon and potential deposits of rare minerals holds promise for both scientific and economic exploration and exploitation. So what is the significance with this? NASA aims to contribute to the scientific discovery, economic benefits, and also help the new generation of explorers also to get excited as well. So it will demonstrate new technologies. It will also show up to the business approaches as well. It will also inspire a new generation and encourage careers in the STEM technology. It is this that we have to understand with respect to this topic. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.